I'm going to be installing a RacingLine catch can in our Audi S3. Big thanks to Guy Harding at Harding Performance in Brisbane. They had just received these. They only got a couple in, and I placed my order, and the next morning it arrived. So I mean, not too far from Brisbane, but it's very nice to get that kind of service on some car parts. Now, there's not going to be a full, super in-depth tutorial. The Humble Mechanic is definitely got the best video on that. Super in-depth, detailed parts list, everything, all the tools list, everything you need to know. But because we are on a right-hand drive car and it's an Audi where he did it on a Golf R, just any differences, I'll be sure to point them out. So, overview, we got to take off these two coils, ignition coils, and then we'll disconnect that. We take off the hose here that goes to the CTS turbo inlet elbow. You can see the video on that we've already done. And the PCV valve is this plastic chunk here. Now we just have to take off these Torx bolts, remove it, and feed in the new hoses and reinstall. So we've already gone ahead and partially assembled this part, which is the PC valve replacement plate. This just comes separate, and you just put some screws in, and this little fitting here has to be installed. Did that last night while just watching TV with the missus, so nice and easy. And I've also put the bracket on the coolant filling bottle. Now it's a little extra bit, but you should get that, buy that extra if you have a all-wheel drive car, because it relocates that. You basically get rid of this bottle. So we'll get stuck into taking this apart and getting the parts in. Have a look, make sure there's no oil or anything in there. Now the coil packs are off, just easy to have a look check. And we'll just undo this PCV clip. There we go. That came off real easy off that inlet. And now we'll get the Torx and undo the PCV valve and remove that. Okay, I ran into a little problem. I'm about to take the PCV valve off. So these are T30 Torx, no problem. I have a T30 Torx here on my set, but because this one has this little adapter, you cannot get it in to that bolt. So I do have it's a flip out like kind of hand key set of Torx that's actually come apart, and I do have one there. So that is a T30 Torx there. You're gonna have to have that and to put the new one in an Allen similar to clear that, because you don't want to take off your fuel pump. There's no need to do that. You just keep that in mind. You're going to need something to get in there, a longer straight Torx bit to be able to clear all that. Now before we pull it off, it's all undone. There's a little hose clamp here. We gotta undo, so we'll just undo that with pliers. We don't have any hose clamp pliers. Go. Done. This will tidy up, because you're going to want that nice and clean for the gasket to sit on. So the whole reason we're doing this is we do track days, and sometimes on the track we do run semi-slick tires, but sometimes after coming through a hard corner or hard braking, as soon as you're back on the gas, we do get a bit of a cloud. Not massive, but you do get some smoke out the back, and that's from oil basically pooling at the front of the engine, and then getting on when you're under braking, and then getting on the throttle and having it pour into the intake track and then burning up. So this will get rid of that and clear out help keep the contamination to a minimum. Now we're ready to put the plate in. You're going to need a 4mm Allen key. So that's the Allen key. We'll be using that next to the fuel pump where this is too wide to reach in, and then we'll just use that to kind of torque in all the others to a little bit firmer setting. Like I said, it wasn't very on there very tightly. None of the bolts, original bolts, were in very tight, so we'll go similar to what they were when we took them out. Just making sure that gasket doesn't move. Doesn't look like it. It's nice and flush, feels flat, so that gasket should be in place. Just going to start them all by hand with the Allen key, and that way they can line up evenly, because it is a countersunk head, and I guess if one's off a little bit, the rest won't be lining up. Looks like we're going to have to use the Allen key to tighten the fitting up that comes off this little baffle part here as well. It's going to be quite tight with the ratchet to get in there. Super awesome. I dropped an Allen key into the abyss. It's a 4mm. There's plenty. I think that's the main size I think IKEA has, so I've got, I think, an infinite number of them. But we're just going to get everything, all the screws are in. We're just going to get it lightly snugged up, and then we'll go over it and give everything a bit more torque on it. Just fitting up the supplied hose that replaces the one from the other PCV. Now we just got to cut the fit, so I've secured this end here. There's a little clip underneath that it goes into, and then we'll just measure and snip it off there, and then we'll chuck some, just I don't think it's under pressure, but we'll just put some hose clamps on it anyway, just to be secure. We've got our coil packs back in. We'll clip those all down, so they're back in, ready to go, and we'll just pop the bolts in and tighten them up. Then we're ready to get going with the hoses and the fittings there. So this one here is a slightly different size, so to keep it black, what I'll do, I'll just get onto an adjustable wrench, put a little bit of masking tape on it so it doesn't mark it, and I'll tighten it up. Okay, we're going to take out the washer bottle. So mine is pretty well drained, which is good. If not, you're going to pull it up and it's going to drain all over the floor. And you can siphon it out if you want. So there's everybody's favorite, a 10mm. So you take this out, it's barely even in there. And we'll put that aside. Grab the bottle, give it a good tug. And we got a bit of water. There she goes. Cool. Get a bit more room there. Okay, now we're gonna get the little overflow installed. So this is a separate kit for if you have an all-wheel drive, because you got to relocate it. So there's this plug that plugs into exactly where we took the washer bottle out of. So it gives you the hose as well, which is cool. You don't have to go get that. Just slide that over the barb fitting, and then we'll stick it on the end of that barb fitting. Yeah, you could put a hose clamp, but this stuff isn't under pressure, so it's not really going to do anything. No real need to. That nut's tight. That's installed there. The kit comes with the bracket, and that's going to sit neatly underneath a little bit of trim right over here. No, where's this go? We'll find it where it goes. I think it goes there somewhere. We'll find a spot for it. Okay, one of the differences between an S3 and a Golf R we have just found is this bracket does not fit on the S3. The Golf R has a like metal piece here. That little cutout there fits it perfectly, and it goes into the bolt that is right there. It just lifts up. But this is a plastic piece of the internal bit of the car. It looks like a fiber reinforced plastic, and that washer relocation bottle does not fit. There is a coolant hose there and a big plastic bit of the intake there. So that is not going to clear. So I do want to get it installed. I'll find out. I'll get in touch with RacingLine. I'll put the resolution in the comments, but for now what I'll do is I'm going to plug this in so we can have the bottle in here, and I'm going to just get out the trusty cable ties and cable tie it into position, probably right about there. I can get it through that cable tie through that latch and around there. So it's just going to be snug and out of the way, and we'll find out what RacingLine have for a solution with that. Okay, good thing I come from JDM cars, zip tied to nice and sturdy, so that'll stay. Now we're going to put the catch can in and replace this bolt. Now this is a single-use bolt supposedly, but it's Sunday. I can't get another one right now. So next time I clean out the catch can, I'll change that bolt over. So I'll get a reply from RacingLine hopefully pretty soon and see what the resolution they have for the bracket not fitting the S3. So you need a deep socket 16 mil to get that out, and put that in there. Now that has to be torqued down to 40 Newton meters. So I got my torque wrench ready to go, but I'll just get this started first. Now it looks like the bracket on the catch can isn't tapered in enough on the ends to allow it to go far enough in to clear the bolt hole. So this engine mount on the S3 is quite different than that on the Golf. The Golf is a more square cutout here and has another like kind of flange piece you see kind of come down there. So this is more rounded. So gotta say, legends at RacingLine, particularly Harding Performance. Guy from Harding Performance got back to me on a Sunday. He's at the park with the kids and he still got back to me. He said the problem here, they've got so many different versions of this with Volkswagen, as they do with so many different parts. It just doesn't quite fit. So I'll have to do a little, get a couple spacers in there and a little bit longer bolt. So tomorrow I'm going to go up to see those guys in Brisbane. It's about just a short drive up the highway here, and we'll get it all fit up in the workshop. In the meantime, I'm gonna finish the rest of it, plumbing it in, putting all the lines on, and then we'll tidy it all up tomorrow when we're up in Brisbane. For now, I'm just gonna get it in position, and I'm going to just zip tie it into where it's gotta be, because yeah, JDM life on a Euro car. Okay, we have a temporary fix for installing this. So because that engine mounting bolt actually has a threaded bit on top, I just had a random nut 10 mil for a 10 mil there, and actually had a built-in washer, and put that over the top. So that'll hold it for now. I put the stock bolt in here. There is a gap, so we'll get some kind of spacer for that, but we'll go see the guys tomorrow and they'll help us out. But I got it on here and that's secure. So I've just snapped on the clip to the inlet elbow. It just goes nice and with the snap, goes through in between the coil packs, around, and then we're going to thread it onto here. Now, important to know with these, you don't want to cross thread them. They will thread on quite easily by themselves with some, just if they're all lined up correctly. So just take your time with it. And then, like I said, I've got a wrench that I've just packed out. Thank you to the humble mechanic for that tip, with masking tape, and we'll just snug it up with that when we're ready to tighten it. So everything's hand tight, and we'll crank it down in a minute. giving them a wiggle just as you go, turning the threads. They really lets them go a little bit further, and so there'll be less turns we have to do with the tools. Okay, everything's snugged up. We're going to put the little holder for the vent lines. Bit odd, the Allen key on this is not a 4mm, not a 5, but a 3/16. So we've got a little bit of the old world size hardware on here with the nut on there, which is fine because I use an adjustable wrench on it, but this is an odd Allen key size to have, particularly in Australia where we're very metric. So get this on here, try not to drop it down into the engine. Looks pretty cool. We'll keep more importantly, we'll keep everything from rubbing together. Ew. We're done. It was a pretty easy install. The whole plate, everything was really easy, not hard at all to do. You just need some basic tools. Tricky thing is on this catch can, but we'll see what we can get a resolution with that tomorrow. We're going to go up and see the guys, the RacingLine dealer at Harding Performance, and the guy was awesome and messaged me on a Sunday and said, hey, look, just come see us tomorrow. There's a bunch of different options there. So we'll just whip up there tomorrow and see. I made it work. It's on there. If they weren't close by, not a problem. That's fine. It's super secure. It's a pre-existing factory bolt with that little bolt on top, so no problem just to chuck that other little nut on there. Solid enough. So let's pop it down and go for a drive. So I'm at Harding Performance with Guy Harding, and we're just tidying up the little fitment on this for the S3. So what we ended up doing, the bottom bolt there, because it's got a top bit, put a 10mm nut on it, sits perfectly, and then we'll just run a spacer to fill the gap under here. Fitment wise on the reservoir, we're just going to put a little hole here right in the middle. It'll actually look very factory, and use one of these factory style Torx, and that'll just hold nice and neatly underneath there, and it'll look like it came from the factory that way. All right, the guys have worked their magic. Pretty simple fix. So the final result, really happy with fitment. So a little bit of a spacer here. It's the just the modified version of that RacingLine spacer that comes with the kit. Just had to shave it down a little bit. The bolt there, the factory bolt, is long enough to work. We put a nut down in there on top of that stud, so that is as secure as it will ever be. And then over here, where that bracket didn't fit, we kept the bracket on, and you see we just drilled a small hole, put a Torx bolt, just a leftover factory one, in there, and it looks like it was meant to be. On the other side, there is a little nut, captive nut holding it on. Just hold that down with the wrench and tighten that up. Nice and easy, but that's super solid too, so we're not having any contact on any hoses anywhere. And what a great result from the guys at Harding Performance and then the RacingLine setup. So fantastic fitment on these. You know, everything does look factory. The engine cover does fit back over it, and when you do, you just have these hoses coming through, but they're a really nice hose. They match some of the factory ones pretty closely. But all in all, a pretty easy setup. And if you're doing any kind of track work, I highly recommend that setup. It's what most of the guys run. Even the Volkswagen Racing use it on their race cars.